All right, the NFL wildcard games are just ahead, coming up this weekend. I think we're gonna have a lot of really good competitive games. I think the Ravens and Bills games are very likely to be blowouts, especially the way that the Steelers and Broncos have been kind of playing a bit worse to end the season. But I think the other four games are going to be extremely competitive. So let's get into the games I like, the score predictions, and who I think is going to move on um, to the next round. All right, let's get into the first game of the day, and that's going to be the Chargers heading over to Houston as 3-point road favorites. So this game I kind of bounced back and forth on, but every sign really is telling me that the Chargers are going to win this game. If you just look at the quarterback situation, Stroud's been awful this year. 20 touchdowns to 12 ints. He's almost in his NFL equivalent of a sophomore slump. I think he's it's hard to say he's been playing bad when he's been dealing with two main quarterbacks out. I think he lost Nico for like a 6 to 7 week stretch there. His weapons haven't been there. But again, they're not going to be here in this game. Nico's doesn't necessarily have a great matchup against a pretty solid Chargers secondary. And I don't think Houston is going to be able to extend the plays very much. I think it's going to be hard for Nico to get the separation against this Chargers rushing and blitzing. So I think they're going to try to have to run the ball a lot. And if you are able to stifle Joe Mixon, I think you just completely stifle this Houston offense. And if you look at the red zone matchup, the Chargers are the number one red zone defense in the entire league. And the Texans are not a great red zone team either. They are 26th in red zone scoring, and up against the Chargers, number one. I think they're going to have to probably kick a lot of field goals, probably some tough ones. I think once you make it into the Chargers half of the field, it starts getting really tough. It's when they really kind of lock in. And Fairbairn's been very good this year, but I think in these conditions, it's going to really rely on him to get the points. So when I think of this game, I think Texans they might be able to squeeze out one touchdown this game on some big Nico play. So I'm going to say Texans will probably get 3 field goals. I'd say 4 field goals, 1 touchdown. I think it's going to be maybe 19 points for the Texans. And I think the Chargers are able to get 2 touchdowns and 4 field goals. So I'm predicting maybe a 23-19 type of game. Low scoring affair. Both of the teams are incredibly good on defense. But yeah, I think the red zone defense is going to be a problem. And if you look at the field goal percentage, obviously this isn't necessarily Chargers, blocking field goals, but they have been really good at limiting. They're the third best team in opponent field goal conversion at 75%. And Fairbairn kind of looked a bit shakier near the end of the year. I think he was probably one of the top 3 kickers, and he kind of finished around the top 6, top 7 range. And on the other side, we have the Chargers who, again, they are 93% in field goal conversion. So top 4 against Houston, 93%. So Houston lets teams get into a comfortable kicking field. I don't know. I'm looking at these two things. I understand that, there's a narrative about Houston last year, but this feels like a very different spot. And as much as I want the Texans and Stroud to win, I just don't think it's this year for them because of the injuries. And this is Herbert's best regular season. I think they have the coaching edge. Give me the Chargers to win this game by 4 points. Maybe even 1 point. I think it's going to be a really close game, but somehow the Chargers are going to pull it out just because of that red zone defense. So let's go with 20-17 final. I think let's do 19 to 20. Yeah, 19-20. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think Chargers pull it up by 1. I think the Texans can cover this game just off of their defense, but the Chargers will grind it out and be able to win by 1 point. So that's going to be my pick. Chargers to win, Texans to cover. Let's move on to the next game. All right, game number 2 on Saturday. We're going to have Pittsburgh going into Baltimore as 10-point dogs. So we just got the news Zay Flowers is officially out, which to me doesn't mean too much, but it also means that the Ravens, long ball threat, I think is going to be significantly diminished. If you look at their passing play, they don't pass the ball very much, but when they do pass, it's usually if there's a big play opportunity. I think they're ranked number 1 in yards per pass at 8.8. So I think that is going to be stifled a bit. I think Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are probably going to have to step up a bit in the passing attempts. And although I really think the Steelers' rushing defense is solid, if you just look at their last game, the December 21st game between the Ravens and the Steelers, Derrick Henry only carried 24 times and he ran 162 yards. So it seems like whatever they're able to do, they're probably going to be able to do it again. Obviously, this is a similar game where Zay Flowers had 100 yards as well on only 5 receptions. And so removing that big play opportunity to some degree. Oh, God, I do think that maybe there's an angle here where the Steelers can keep this game close. Obviously, Russell Wilson has looked absolutely mediocre to end the season. If you look at the games that he ended off on, they lost to the Chiefs, only putting up 1 touchdown. They lost to the Bengals, only getting 1 passing touchdown. They got, shit on by the Eagles. I don't know. Like ever since that one little stretch where they were kind of cooking, where they put up 44 against the Bengals, they haven't really looked that great. And the Ravens obviously have one of the best rushing defenses in the entire league. Limiting teams to 3.6 yards per rush, only 22 rushes per game. Opponent rush yards per game, ranked number 1. So Pitt they're gonna have to throw the ball, so they're gonna have to rely on Russell Wilson. There is some Fields discussion of whether or not he's gonna come into this game, but I don't think he will. And if he does, I still don't think that's gonna be big enough of a difference. I just think that the dual running threat from Baltimore, obviously the Pittsburgh rush defense is solid, but again, that game has made me a lot less confident in their rushing defense, especially however Baltimore plays it. I do think that this game is going to come down to coaching. I think the Pittsburgh's going to have the coaching edge. I'm sure they're watching a ton of tape on what went wrong in that last game, and they're going to figure out a way to stop Derrick Henry. But if you stop Derrick Henry, then you got to stop Lamar. But again, I think with the rushing threat being diminished, obviously I think Mark Andrews is going to step up big time. And so I still think the Ravens are going to win this game, but I don't think they're going to cover the +10. So I think this is going to be like a 27-20 game for the Ravens. I think Pittsburgh keeps it closer than people think they do. Obviously Russell Wilson is older. He probably should be equipped to deal with the pressures of this game. But it's just way too hard to bet against the Ravens right now. Like their defense is cooking. Even their passing defense, which was one of the worst in the league, has also started to tighten up a lot in the last few games of the season. So they're looking like one of the more complete teams. Obviously, you're going to have to deal with the Justin Tucker problem, which is also a reason why I think Pittsburgh could keep this close. Their Baltimore's field goal conversion rate is 29th in the league, 73%. Tucker just has not looked even close to himself. And Pittsburgh is pretty good at limiting the opponent's field goal conversion. And that's not even necessarily about their defense. They also block a lot of field goals. And that pressure makes kickers nervous. And I think Tucker's going to crumble. If Baltimore's not getting touchdowns, I think they might get maybe 1 field goal. So if I had to guess, Baltimore's going to get, let's say 3 touchdowns this game, 1 field goal. 24 points. And I think Steelers are probably going to struggle a bit offensively. So I think I'm going to change my prediction to 24 points for Baltimore and 17 points for Pittsburgh. So 24-17 win for Baltimore. I have this modeled as an 8-point win for Baltimore, so that about fits where I like it. I think the defenses step up big time this game. Two of the best defenses in football against, one of the best offenses in football, but missing one of their key pieces. So give me Steelers to lose this game, but to cover the +10 on the road, 24-17 final prediction. Let's move on to the next game. All right, heading into the Sunday slate, the first game we have up at 1 p.m. is going to be Denver heading into Buffalo. So I'll preface this by saying I do think Buffalo wins this game. I think they are a dominant force at home. They're 8-0 at home. Denver, I believe, is 4-5 on the road. But these teams are actually much closer than, statistically than people think, just because obviously the Bills have had an incredible season. They are arguably a top 3 team in the NFL this year. But when I look at the matchups, I don't necessarily see on paper where Buffalo will be getting such a significant edge. So one of the more important matchups for me this game is going to be the sacks. So obviously Buffalo gives up the fewest sacks in the league, 2.62%. But Denver gets the most sacks of any defense, ranked at 9.42%. So I think this might be a weird game for, I don't know, one of those two can't be true. And so I'm not sure whether or not Buffalo's defense is going to give up more sacks on Allen, who's not really used to it, or if Buffalo's defense is going to stifle Denver's blitzing. And so theoretically, this will be the game where Allen should see probably a lot more scrambles because he looks like he's going to be dealing with a pretty intense blitz. And obviously he's been good on that front, but I don't know if that's going to be a problem for him. If you look at their matchups on rushing, Buffalo rushes the ball pretty frequently, 9th most in the league, but Denver also limits rushes to 3.9 yards per rush, or the second best in the league. So when you look at that matchup, it feels like he's going to want to have to throw the ball more. I don't think they're going to be able to rely on James Cook too much. Josh Allen's probably going to use his legs a lot more this game. And he will have been rested. He technically played last game, but basically had a bye week. So I think that'll be fine for Buffalo. But on the other side, it's just like Denver doesn't rush the ball very much. Buffalo's rush defense isn't, it's above average, but it's not phenomenal. So Denver will probably find some success in rushing and running. But I don't know. I think Buffalo's offense is just going to be too much for them. But I think Denver is going to be able to score. If you look at points per play, Denver is ranked number 1 in limiting opponents to 0.285 points per play. And Buffalo is ranked number 1 in 0.512 points per play on offense. So this is going to be a very interesting matchup against one of the best offenses versus one of the best defenses. But on the other side, Denver's offense isn't great, but Buffalo is going to let them move the ball up the field. We saw in their most recent Rams loss that Buffalo's defense is not that good. It really does let up a lot of big plays, and the fact that they have the 29th worst opposing third down conversion percentage, to me just means that Denver's going to score points here, and I don't think Buffalo is going to be able to stop them. It really comes down to whether or not Bo Nix has it in him, but I think this is going to be a really close game, and as a Bills fan, it kind of scares me because, this is probably one of, in my opinion, the harder first-round matchups. But when I look at this game, I'm just thinking, I think it's going to be close, but I think it's going to be a shootout, like all of the Bills games are. So I'm predicting a 3-point. I'm going to say 31-27 Bills victory. I think they will get a touchdown with 4 minutes left, and Denver will rush up the field, needing a touchdown, and they'll come short, and Bills will take this one home. Or it'll be the other way around. Denver will be leading by 3, and I think the Bills will do a final rush touchdown. But I think it's going to be a neck and neck. I really do. It scares me as a Bills fan to say that, but yeah, give me Bills to win this game by 4, and Denver to cover the 8.5 spread. All right, moving on to the second game on the Sunday slate. We're looking at the Packers versus the Eagles. Now, this is going to be my first upset pick, I think. I can fully understand why everyone would be on the Eagles. They're, at home. They got Saquon Barkley. They got Jalen Hurts. They got A.J. Brown. They got Devonta Smith. They got Dallas Goedert. They've got a very, very good team. But again, first thing I'm thinking of right away is I think they're underplaying this concussion. The NFL obviously is an entertainment business first. And I think that they would think this is going to be a great matchup and they need Jalen Hurts to play. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Hurts is getting pushed through this protocol process faster than he should be in normal circumstances. And I don't know, concussion can really screw up everything, especially if you're throwing the ball more. And I think they're going to have to throw the ball to beat this Green Bay team. If you're looking at the stats, obviously Philadelphia is a great rushing team. They rushed it more than any other team in the NFL. They're number 1 in rushes per game, number 1 in rush play percentage, number 2 in rush yards per game, number 5 in yards per rush. But Green Bay they're not going to roll over and let you rush on them. They are 3rd in opponent yards per rush, 10th in opponent rushes per game, 7th in opponent rush yards per game. They have a pretty solid rush defense, and I think Saquon's going to have a few of those, first downs where he gets 0 yards, 1 yard. They push it again, he gets 3 yards, and now it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5. They're going to have to throw the ball. Obviously, there's some mild threat with Jalen Hurts running, but I don't know. I think they're going to have to throw the ball. And if you look at the passing stats, obviously Jalen Hurts doesn't throw the ball a lot. It's not really something, it's kind of something he's been criticized of from his own wide receivers. But even when he does pass it, he does get the 7th most yards per pass. But the one thing that really throws me off is the sack percentage. So obviously because you don't throw a lot, the percentage is going to be higher. But when he does drop back, Philadelphia gives up the 2nd most sacks on their quarterback. And Green Bay gets the 10th most sacks, around 8%. So I think Green Bay is going to sack him, a few times this game. And when you get sacked, you have to throw the ball even more because your rushing game probably is going to be as effective. And if Green Bay can stop Saquon Barkley, at least from making massive explosive plays, I like Green Bay's chances of keeping this game really, really close. Again, another big thing where I see an advantage is field goal percentage. Green Bay has 7% higher field goal conversion percentage than Philadelphia. So they should, if it does become a really grindy defensive game, I think Green Bay has the edge there. And then if you just keep going through the stats, Green Bay has fewer penalty yards than Philadelphia, who tends to, sometimes struggle with penalties in big games. And then on the other side, Green Bay is a decent rushing team as well. They are 5th in rush per game, 6th in yards per rush, 5th in rushing yards total per game. In Philadelphia, compared to Green Bay's defense, is actually worse. They're 7th in opponent rush per game, 9th in opponent yards per rush, 12th in opponent's rush percentage play. They do stop teams from getting a lot of rushing touchdowns, but that's just because their other defense is so good that you don't get to the red zone as much. But I don't know. I think Green Bay, this is a matchup where Green Bay has the better offense than Philadelphia, in my opinion, and Philadelphia has the better defense. And if they have to pass the ball, I would much rather Jordan Love to be throwing the ball than a concussion Jalen Hurts, who, might be seeing doubles to some degree, especially once it gets a little colder. So I don't know, man. I hate Nick Sirianni. I don't think he's a good coach. I think he's going to make some really bad decisions that are going to cost Eagles free points. They're going to go for it on 4th a lot. Obviously, they have an edge here. They converted at a 70% clip on 4th down. And Green Bay is 20th in allowing 4th down conversion. But I don't know, man. This Green Bay team shouldn't be counted out. They've already beat them once. I think this is going to be a much closer game than people are imagining. Obviously, the spread's 4.5, so even the books are expecting this to be within a one-score game. But no, I don't think the Christian Watson injury is going to be a big deal. He was kind of wasn't really an X factor for this Green Bay team anyway. And I think Jane Reed's going to have himself a pretty big game. I think they have an advantage on the secondary compared to the Eagles. Yeah, give me the Packers to upset the Eagles. In terms of a score, I think both teams are going to find some success in scoring this game. I think the Packers would probably get... Yeah, I'm going to say this is going to be a 31-28 Packers win. I think they're going to keep this game close. I think the Eagles are going to be up a field goal late in the game, and the Packers are going to do a final drive rush with a few seconds left. And Sirianni can't coach to save his life. Eagles are going to try to come back. They're going to turn the ball over. Yeah, give me the Packers here. Plus, I don't know. I don't really know where A.J. Smith's situation is. They are dealing with some injuries. Obviously, I think he's just being rested, but he's been kind of dealing with the lingering injuries for a while now. And those are typically exacerbated by really cold weather. And I think it's going to be like 30 Fahrenheit. So, I don't know. Give me the Packers. 31-28. Lock her in. All right. The fifth game that we have is going to be the Commanders heading over to Tampa Bay on the late game on the Sunday slate, 8 p.m. EST. So I realize now I've taken 4 underdogs for the first 4 games, but this is definitely going to be my first favorite game where I think the Buccaneers are going to run away with this game. The main reason is simply that I think Tampa Bay is just the more balanced team. They have a more experienced quarterback. We don't really know how Jane Daniels is going to compete when the pressure is on him, in an away environment. I don't know. I think this is going to be a good spot for Mayfield to prove that he is one of the elite quarterbacks in football. No one really ever talks about him, but he's been really good this year. And I don't know. I think even though they're not going to get Godwin back, when I look at the matchups, obviously, Buccaneers have already crushed Commanders. Obviously, they had Godwin that game, and Jane Daniels was still very new, hadn't really settled into the league yet. So I won't put too much, emphasis on that game. But, Bayfield threw almost 300 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. And when you look at the matchup, that's actually where Tampa Bay should be struggling. They should be, running the ball more against this really bad Commanders rush defense. If you look at the matchup, Tampa Bay is now that they've figured out Bucky Irving and they've gotten him into the offense, Rashad White has kind of worked more as like a receiving back. Tampa Bay is 3rd in yards per rush. They are 4th in rush yards per game. They're running the ball a lot, and the Commanders suck at stopping the run. They are 25th in opponent rush per game, 30th in opponent rush yards per game, 28th in opponent rush. So everyone knows to just run the ball against the Commanders because they can't stop the run. And Bucky Irving's been great. Rashad White, he's okay, but he's good enough of a back to get you your first downs when Bucky is resting. So I don't know. I just think that Tampa Bay's run is going to be really impactful this game. And on the other side, Washington also was a very good run. They technically have a better rushing game than Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay has a much better rushing defense than Washington. Washington gets 4th most yards per rush, slightly worse than Tampa, but they're against a Tampa Bay team that limits to the 10th best at limiting the opponent rush yards per game. You got Washington that has the 3rd most rush yards per game at 154, but they're ranked up against the Tampa Bay rushing defense that's ranked 4th, giving up only 98 rushing. So Jaden's gonna have to throw the ball, and obviously he can throw the ball well.
Someone is at the front
but
door.
I simply don't see the world where they have the edge in rushing compared to Tampa. So on that front, we look at the passing. Tampa Bay obviously is they got Baker Mayfield. They are ranked 2nd in completion percentage, 6th in yards per pass, 3rd in pass yards per game. And the Washington defense is pretty good. They are 3rd in opposing pass yards per game. But you can't really look at that number. You have to look at the opponent yards per pass, which is 16th, because teams just run the ball. So those total numbers are really inflated. So I truly don't think their passing defense is actually that great. And on the other front, Tampa Bay is probably their biggest weakness is their passing defense. They don't really do anything well, and they probably, I don't know. I think Daniel's going to have to throw the ball, but he's not that great. He's 12th in yards per pass, 6th in completion percentage, which is great. But they don't really throw the ball very much. And Washington gives up a lot of sacks. So I think Tampa Bay is going to blitz the shit out of Jaden because they're not going to have success running the ball. And Jaden's probably going to throw more interceptions than he wants to, or he's going to get sacked more. He's going to have to use his legs. He's going to get really tired. It's going to be, I don't know, I think it's a really tough environment. And then if you look at it, if this ends up becoming a defensive game, and there's going to be a lot of field goals, Tampa Bay is ranked number 1 in all of football in field goal conversion percentage, 94%. And Washington, 24th, with 81%. So if push comes to shove, I think Washington takes more penalties. Tampa Bay has more possession time. They're going to do more with each possession. They're the 4th best team at red zone scoring, the 22nd in Washington's red zone defense. So when Tampa Bay gets up the field, they're going to score. I don't know. I don't see a world unless Jane Daniels really has a generational game where they're going to beat them here. I think Tampa Bay is the better team. They're at home. They have the better rushing offense. They have the better passing offense. They have the experience, and they have the better coach. Obviously, I really love the Commanders coach, but I think this is going to be Buccaneers' year to make a relatively deep run. I think they're probably going to get stifled, but I think they also could be Green Bay. I don't know. I think this is a world where they win the NFC. So give me Tampa Bay to win this game by, I'm going to say 10 points. I think they're going to win by a touchdown and a field goal, and it's going to be a high-scoring game. So give me give me a 31 to 21 game. Buccaneers win. Lock it in. All right, the final game today. We got Minnesota visiting the Rams as short favorites on the road. I can see all the arguments as to why the Vikings will win. They've basically beaten every team that they've played against except for the Rams and the Lions twice. And so it's kind of hard to bet against them. But I think I still will. I don't know, man. Like, Matt Stafford, he's got that Super Bowl experience. Sam Darnold, you don't know what version of him you're going to get. He's really hasn't looked very good. He's coming off an 18 for 41 performance against a Lions team that a lot of quarterbacks have lit up. They don't necessarily have the most incredible running back space. Cam Akers might be better, in my opinion, than Aaron Jones. I'm not a big Aaron Jones believer. And obviously they have an incredible wide receiver core. But when I look at the matchups, in terms of passing, Minnesota yards per pass 5th, Rams 25th. They have a good advantage on that front. Same on the defensive end, but I'm trying to I don't think there are any numbers that really support why I like the Rams. I just think that they're a good home team against a quarterback that I genuinely don't believe is actually that good. I think the Rams' record is worse than it should be because of their early on injuries to their defensive core and their wide receivers. But I think this is a big moment for them. They fought hard to make the playoffs. They're not just going to roll over and die at home. I don't know. I think the Rams are going to play hard. And who knows if any of these Rams players lost something in these fires in Hollywood and are going to be even more motivated to win this, just to get those incentives. Kind of morbid, but it is an unfortunate reality that I think the Rams are going to win. I do. No real statistical thing. I think Minnesota is the better team on paper, obviously. But I think the Rams' coaching and playoff experience will be enough to beat what I truly believe to be a very fraudulent Sam Darnold, who I don't think he's going to show up in the big moment. I think we're going to get a shitty version of him like we did, where he only threw 166 yards, 18 for 41. Yeah, I think he's cheeks, and he's going to have really bad vision. He's going to get blitzed. Yeah. Screw it. Give me the Rams. I think it's going to be a close game. Extremely close. I think it's going to be a complete shootout. I know Minnesota has a good defense, but I still think Rams are going to get there. So give me the Rams to win 27-24. That's my final prediction.